Asking new questions about life and finding better answers to previously asked questions is the essence of this book. I'm Tim, and I grew up in the East Flemish town of Leyden in Belgium. The writing of this book began in the summer of 2010 and was only completed in September 2023. You may be wondering why it took so long. Well, it had nothing to do with laziness or lack of motivation. On the contrary, I took the time to acquire more and more knowledge and to learn about life and its mysteries. As a creative person with a rebellious streak and naturally an introverted individual, I was determined to discover who I was, who we are as a human species, what our purpose is, and what we are capable of achieving when we focus on something. It's sometimes amusing to think that almost no one in my immediate surroundings knew anything about my spiritual journey behind the scenes. My fascination with all things profound, mysterious, or unexplainable, or even the extraordinary experiences that have changed my life. From a young age, I felt that there was much more to life than what I had experienced so far. I wanted to fully embrace life and explore the possibilities it had to offer. But how could I do this in practice? However, as a creative person, I found it almost impossible to build a stable life without getting myself into trouble, either financially or in relationships. I did my best to move forward and pursue my dreams, but despite my efforts, I constantly encountered obstacles that shouldn't have been there. There have been so many phases in my life where I felt like I was going to succeed at something, achieve success, or finally overcome a fear. But it turned into yet another disappointment, another setback, plagued by doubts or external influences once again. Sound familiar? This cycle needed to be broken. Why did this pattern keep recurring? I became frustrated and discouraged because it felt like I couldn't fully tap into my potential in this society. What does a person need to do to progress in their life? Thinking out of the box seemed impossible, or worse yet, unacceptable. Anytime you step even slightly out of line, there are always people who tell you how wrong you are, how you should get back in line like everyone else, or how irresponsible or unrealistic you are in your approach to life. And yes, almost all of us face this, or let me say that we all try to consider what the people around us think of us. But to what extent should we allow this? Should we deny ourselves because someone else doesn't understand our vision of life? I knew at a fairly young age that I had to keep certain ideas, beliefs, and dreams to myself. Not only to protect myself, but also to maintain peace in my immediate environment and to ensure that no label was stuck on my head. Despite the inner struggle I often faced, I didn't let myself be discouraged and continued to fight for my dreams, centered around my creativity and passions. I continued to strive for a better future and a life in alignment with my true self. However, it was a long, bumpy journey, and I quickly realized that hard and intensive work was required to achieve my personal goals. Today, I fully understand that every challenge offers an opportunity to grow and learn, and that every annoying obstacle can be overcome in some way with the right mindset, belief, perseverance, and determination. But I did not have this mindset in the past, especially not in my younger years while I was in school. In the past, it always felt like life didn't give me anything, that you either had luck in life or you didn't. I would never have believed that you are responsible for what comes your way, nor did I understand then that you can choose to take control of your life or relinquish it to others. I have embarked on my own journey, not just in a physical sense. The majority of it was a spiritual journey where I began to explore my own thoughts and beliefs, breaking free from patterns that no longer served me, confronting unpleasant aspects of myself and trying to change them, learning how often I judged someone, or worse, myself. But where did it go wrong exactly? What judgments did I repeatedly pass? Where did my fears come from, and how could I overcome them? So many questions, so many possibilities or paths that we as humans can explore. I made progress in all areas, but nothing seemed to go as I had envisioned it. I kept doing something wrong despite all the psychological changes and insights I had acquired. The realization that I was stuck and not progressing by passively waiting for change led me to actively seek ways to improve myself and grow. I immersed myself in a range of topics, from mindfulness to the law of attraction, from religion to alternative science, from psychology to complex conspiracy theories. During my quest, I aimed for objectivity, realism, and skepticism to get as complete a picture as possible of the various perspectives and insights that exist. I carefully examined and evaluated every piece of information I came across to find the truth. Not just my own truth, but life lessons based on irrefutable facts and scientific evidence. Even though I talk about a spiritual journey in this book, I used to despise the gap between those who were spiritual and those who were anything but. That gap needed to disappear. It is entirely possible to navigate life realistically while still exploring the spiritual side of life, just as the scientific world is also further explored. Honestly, I must admit that it was not always easy. In any topic, from conspiracies to belief systems, there is always so much contradictory information readily available that it can be difficult to distinguish truth, facts, and fiction from one another. And humanity's opinions vary widely when we read online comments, again, that same gap. But through persistence and determination, I eventually managed to find reliable and scientifically substantiated answers that helped me change my perspective on life and grow as a person. It is this information that I wish to share through this book. It is my hope that this book will encourage others to embark on their own quest, whether it is about finding oneself, overcoming personal challenges and fears, or pursuing the deepest desires and biggest dreams. I believe that the quest for wisdom and truth is a universal and timeless human experience, and that we can all benefit from asking questions that have never received a definitive answer. Exploring the possibilities of our existence, the power within us. Why do we spend so little time on this? What is so obvious to some cultures is taboo to others. What if all the answers were right in the middle all along? Gratitude has played a significant role in my life, and I would like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has helped me during my quest for wisdom and truth, as well as those who have simply crossed my path. From friends and family to mentors and strangers who have shared their knowledge and insights with me, it has been an incredible journey. I am grateful for every person and every moment that has contributed to my personal growth and development. Both the good and the bad experiences have contributed to this book, which is also the result of years of research, study, and introspection. Whether you are interested in mindfulness, religion, psychology, alternative science, or conspiracy theories, the fact that you have this book in your hands must have some reason, whether you are aware of it or not. We are all searching for meaning or purpose in our lives and all have the potential to grow and evolve. But to what extent do you take action? I only hope that this book will inspire you in some way, or perhaps guide you on your journey of personal development. Chapter 1. A New Path. New challenges continued to manifest themselves on my journey. Unexpected turns unfolded in my life, and new problems affected both me and my family during this extended period, as is the case for everyone. Planning out life simply doesn't work, no matter how hard you try, just like the saying, God's ways are inscrutable. But how do some people manage to realize their dreams, get their lives on track, or is this just an outward appearance? Looking back, it almost seems like I wrote 3 books over all those years, due to my continually evolving perspective on life, which changed every few months with new insights, but always with new questions. This forced me to rewrite parts of my book over and over again because I wanted everything to be accurate. I had enough uncertainties, let alone wanting to share uncertainties. This is something that is very close to my heart. It seemed like an endless project, a cycle of adding and removing sentences, deleting paragraphs that I originally thought contained the greatest truth, which ultimately turned out not to be true. Summoning the courage to share or not share my own experiences, facing my personal setbacks again, and much more. What started as a book about our thought process and the emotional and physical effects of maintaining a personal positive belief and goal system while radiating positive vibes and feelings grew into a book that could reveal much more. Something that wasn't really part of my original plan. Something sent me on a different path. I always had the intention of sharing my story with the world sooner or later, but I never thought it would happen this way. I always thought I could convey my message through my music productions, separate from the informative book I wanted to write about emotions and feelings. But as I mentioned before, life thrives on unpredictability. The strange turns, meeting the right people at the right time, the ups and downs along the way, it all seemed to be related to this book, as if time and place bent themselves to bring this information to light. This unplanned book you are reading now is not only about the knowledge I have gained on my journey, but also about my low points, regrets, failures, and personal life lessons. They all relate to falling and getting up, overcoming fears, trying to stay afloat, and facing my demons, or whatever you want to call these struggles. To this day, I am convinced that many people can benefit from sharing bad experiences, not just by sharing good experiences, as we usually see on social media. Sharing setbacks and highlighting certain issues can truly open the eyes of others. The perceived mistakes I made in my attempts to unlock the true potential of my mind can actually significantly help others and give them an advantage. By reading my story, people can become fully aware of their own experiences, understand why they think the way they do, or why they keep responding to problems in the same way while expecting different or better results. Gaining more insight is not an easy task. There must be a catalyst. If I share the difficulties I have encountered along the way, as well as the price I've often had to pay, it can provide others with the opportunity to bypass some of these issues and grant them the privilege to skip a few lessons, a shortcut or bypass. But I also want to share the positive things I've encountered while pursuing my dreams, what I've precisely experienced in raising my awareness, how I've overcome certain common fears, in short, the beautiful side of my story, the real beauty of life that I've had the privilege to experience. If I don't do it in this book, I'll do it on social media because it's still a place to share the beauty of life. However, darkness and light are never far from each other, and I've learned that the hard way. It's true that life can be overwhelming, especially in these times of technology, fake news, advertising, and the many social media platforms. Often it feels like there's no time left to broaden our horizons, enjoy the little things, or take some time for ourselves. But is that just an illusion? It often happens that we only realize what we had after we've lost it. However you look at it, you're in a certain pattern, your own world. It's important to be ourselves and pay attention to who we are. But perhaps we should do that a little less sometimes, so that we can occasionally see the world through someone else's eyes. By temporarily shifting ourselves into someone else's world, we can realize that the world has much more to offer than what we are accustomed to. This often happens when we engage in hobbies or sports. For example, people who suddenly start working out with friends, colleagues, or even family, their daily routine is disrupted. Feeling trapped in life is something many people experience. It's the typical routine of life that causes this. But once we break the pattern, a whole new world can open up for us with new people and new experiences that lead to new inspiration, expectations, and goals. A strange question I kept asking myself over and over is whether time really seems to go faster as we get older. Or is it just an illusion we create by being stuck in our daily lives and personal routines? We seem to have forgotten that there are other options, other paths we can choose if we want to. As children, we saw life as something boundless, unless others, like our parents, teachers, and other influential people, imposed limits on us. Fortunately, I have gained some wisdom over the past few years that has completely changed my life. While I am happy that I can now share this knowledge with you, at the same time, I hope that no one has to experience the same pain that I have endured. Along the way, strange things have happened to me, things that I still can't explain, and to be completely honest, I hesitated for a long time to write about these weird events in this book. But because I now unconditionally believe that everything has a purpose, no matter how incomprehensible it may seem at times, I have written down how the universal manifestation theory truly entered my life. This is the theory of life that I have written and that this book is all about. Now that I'm already on a path where I dare to be completely myself, why not just go all in? More about this later in this book. I wouldn't want anything to come across as confusing, which is why I have linked this theory to my personal story. On some days, I do wonder if it has all been worth it. Shouldn't I have just put all my energy into my music and graphic designs? Wouldn't my life have been easier if I hadn't consciously ventured into the unknown? But now, sitting here and writing my story, I know that my experiences have led me to this point. I don't know what the future holds, but I still believe I'm on the right path. I've actually reached a point where I care very little about what others think of me. For the first 30 years of my life, I did nothing but that, all year round. Always thinking I was being watched by the people around me. Often thinking people were judging me or talking behind my back. Always expecting the worst. Most of the time fabrications of my own mind. At the same time, I was someone who always tried to keep everyone happy. Tried to maintain peace. Tried to avoid conflicts. All while being far too humble, too obedient, too ashamed, too insecure, and much more. There was work to be done. The harsh truth, something I realized at a later age, is that everyone is actually too busy with themselves, and it really doesn't matter. I know these traits come with being an introvert, and often I hope that extroverted people would understand this better, but it's still a struggle many of us face. My eyes truly opened years ago when I watched a video in which someone discussed this issue in the context of death. Unfortunately, I never knew the name of this person, but his words have always stayed with me. It went like this. When you are about to die, only a few, including your loved ones, family, and close friends, will mourn for an extended period. Outside of these precious people around you, there will be very few whose world doesn't return to normal after a week, back to the old pattern. This may sound very painful and harsh, but truth remains truth no matter how you spin it. So why would you invest your energy and precious time on this planet in trying to guess what people think of you? Why would you go through life and prioritize someone else over yourself? What it comes down to is that you can spend the same energy on yourself, and that has nothing to do with selfishness, egocentrism, or narcissism. It's simply realizing that your mood, self-confidence, or health don't have to be affected in any situation, and certainly not by speculating, overthinking, or creating unnecessary fears in your life. The people around me have seen in recent years how I dared to completely change my life overnight. But that's today. In the past, I would seek confirmation from family or friends for months before making a decision about something. Whether it was about a certain direction I wanted to take with my music, a job, the services of my business, or something entirely trivial. Why did I do that? I knew I was an insecure person, but then I began to realize that even the most extroverted people exhibit the same behavior on social media. So, it has truly become a collective problem. How often we in this society seek approval from the people around us, or even seek confirmation from complete strangers, encouraged to give a thumbs up. We see this all around us, as if half the world is looking for confirmation of their existence every day, needing recognition, or simply seeking confirmation of the person they are. The patterns are there, but what is the source of this human behavior? Doubt, low self-esteem, fears, the need for love, and so on. You can trace everything back to giving away your own power, or rather, through ignorance of this power. But where did it go wrong? Why don't we trust our intuition or gut feelings anymore when making decisions for ourselves? Why has someone else's opinion become more important, bigger, and stronger than the power of our own mind and body? Why do we hand everything over to someone else? How often does it happen that people can't see their own flaws but think they know how you should live your life? This doesn't make sense. People who can't solve their own problems or remain stuck in their own patterns, how can they help you improve your life? The answer is simple. They can't. No one carries the same backpack as you. No one has experienced what you have gone through in your life journey, or the emotions that came with it. The only thing they can really do is give you some insights that stem from stories about their own problems, which can be interesting, but they can't do much more than that. It's your life and your story. Someone who lacks the power, or doesn't know how to break a pattern and keeps doing the same things in their life, can never teach you how to break a pattern. You can only observe how someone else is stuck in a certain cycle. That's why it's so important to trust yourself when it comes to your gut feeling, regardless of any negative thoughts that may come into your head. I literally knew someone with a drug problem who told me I should make better choices for my graphic design business. I've known people who tried to give me relationship advice while their own love lives were a mess. Almost every month, I meet people who seem to be fighting for justice in this world. But at the same time, they throw accusations and judgments around as if it's nothing. My point is actually quite simple. If everyone focused more on themselves instead of trying to control others, life would be much more enjoyable. Anyone can look in the mirror, but consciously looking in the mirror and daring to face your own flaws, or at least think about them. That's something very different. In 2010, I made a decision that completely shifted the direction of my life. I didn't just want to work on myself, my thoughts, and behavior, but I was also determined to become successful in life, whether that was through my music or by building a career in something else. I was determined to succeed. I decided not to wait any longer for a miracle to magically fall from the sky. This time, it was time to take action and get my hands dirty. In hindsight, this was the biggest choice I ever made. This was the beginning of everything. You see, I had chosen to take the grandest path I could walk, first getting to know myself, then facing my issues, and consciously trying to mold myself into the person I wanted to be. In the beginning, I set myself the goal of addressing all my negative thoughts and catching myself every time I judged, worried, was pessimistic, or thought in catastrophic scenarios. That's how it all started. This approach changed my entire life for the better, and I can only recommend it. The awareness you gain from simply analyzing your own unique thought patterns is immense. Catching yourself in negative thoughts is just as important as paying attention to your spoken words and physical actions. Just like a child learns to be quiet in class, you can also gain control over your thought patterns. Of course, we have our habits, so it's not so easy to block our thoughts overnight. Our brain has had a free pass to do as it pleases for years, with all the consequences. So, this requires a transition phase if we want to address or change it. The theory behind this is actually quite simple, but the practice is a bit less so. It's about creating a new habit, a new ritual, until you regain control. For example, I did this several times a day. Every time I passed judgment, cursed, worried, and so on. If you try this, you'll quickly notice that you're often too late to prevent a thought, and that's normal. But the fact that you're aware of it is invaluable. As I focused on this day in and day out, I soon realized how prominent this thought pattern was in my life. Negative or destructive thinking seemed to be just a part of my daily routine. The great thing is that you can do all of this without bothering anyone, and you're doing something entirely for yourself, which falls under self-care. At the same time, I also tried to stimulate positive thoughts and go through life with more joy and optimism. Now that I realized how polluted my mind was, I truly started to believe that I was responsible for many of my problems. So, what happens when you replace all those negative thoughts with new, beautiful thoughts? It sounds like a fairy tale, but believe me, realizing how often you judge or think pessimistically has an impact on you. Actually, it's quite confronting. It left such a deep impression on me that I wanted to address it as soon as possible, to see if it would have an effect on the world around me, even if it was just how I came across to others. Or perhaps it could reduce a lot of stress. I had to find out. I learned to wake up with a smile and radiate genuine kindness, even in my then current job, which wasn't always easy. I tried to accept or at least tolerate unfriendliness and others' frustrations, realizing that everyone can have a tough time in our society or simply have a bad day. Slowly, a new world opened up for me, and it seemed like I was regaining control of my life. I found a way to steer my life in a new direction, and it didn't require much effort. At least not at that time. I began to feel like I was doing something good, something life-changing, something I hadn't felt in a long time. With courage, I followed my heart. Despite the challenges I encountered for over 3 years, I overcame my fear of public speaking, tamed my shyness, and panic attacks seemed to disappear. I also got rid of certain physical problems caused by stress, including digestive and stomach issues that would flare up when I was under pressure. This change was both a physical and mental relief that had such a significant impact on my life and drove me to continue on this path of self-development. Looking back, the most important thing I learned during this period was that I learned to believe in myself again, especially in my abilities. Without even realizing it, I was reprogramming myself with affirmations. It was as if, for the first time in my life, I had the power to create the world I wanted to create. If this worked, what else could I achieve? Confronting my own thought patterns and being able to change them after all those years was my first active step, and I have no regrets to this day. When you repeatedly catch yourself with negative thoughts about something specific, day after day, week after week, month after month, it's inevitable that you get to know yourself better and automatically regain control over your life, at least partially. All the negativity in my life seemed to fade away. It felt like I was planting a new seed over and over and removing the weeds in my mind. Now that I felt the changes from within and was coming back to life, happier, and had banished some physical ailments that had controlled my life, what came next? My world became more and more a reflection of my inner feelings and aura every day. Sometimes it was hard to believe that my efforts and their results were not figments of my imagination. No matter how much I had learned about positive thinking, certain fears still lingered. There was again that fear of the outside world, The doubt whether I was naive to think such a change was possible. The fear of coming across as a weirdo who believed in the impossible, or talked to themselves in their head. The fear of a relapse, and so on. Yet I persisted. Gradually, I began to reap the rewards of this metamorphosis and saw my personal growth, thanks in part to my long-term consistency. The changes were undeniable. I walked with my head held high, felt much more confident, and people around me began to subtly respond differently to me. There had been a shift in how they interacted with me, as if they were picking up on my new positive energy and being influenced by it. My relationships became healthier and more harmonious, and I noticed that others became more open to my ideas and viewpoints. Even situations that were previously difficult seemed to go more smoothly, especially conversations that used to be a nightmare as an introverted person. I realized that my inner changes were actually influencing the world around me. It was no longer a matter of chance. There was too much evidence. I was living a different life by breaking one pattern. In my immediate surroundings and among the people I trusted, I received positive feedback and compliments about my new mindset and approach to life. People even asked me for advice and inspiration. I realized that my personal journey, no matter how challenging it had been, was actually affecting others and inspiring their own growth. All of this confirmed that my transformation was not an illusion, but a tangible reality. It was the result of my determination and perseverance to actively change my mindset and behavior. It was the proof I was looking for and needed. The belief that I was capable of transforming myself, of taking my happiness and well-being into my own hands. This experience taught me the value of self-reflection, inner work, and consciously cultivating positive thoughts and emotions. It was a lesson that motivated me to continue on this path of personal growth and encourage others to do the same. I understood that our thoughts and beliefs truly have the power to shape our reality, and that we are capable of creating positive changes in ourselves and in the world around us. At that time, this had nothing to do with spirituality in my eyes. It was purely psychology. In this phase of my life, I hadn't researched many other topics like the law of attraction, karma, meditation, and many others that didn't seem important at the time, and that I partially dismissed as nonsense. I had found something that seemed to work for me personally, and it had my full attention without realizing that I was actually attaching myself to one new idea, falling into another fixed pattern that closed my mind to further insights that would benefit me. People often say, you should be open-minded in life. During this period, I learned what that truly means in practice. Initially, everything went smoothly and easily, with so many positive changes. However, over time, I realized that I was still trapped in that world of negative thinking. It was no longer about making small changes in my life, such as not complaining about a coworker, being able to overlook minor physical discomfort, accepting impatience at red traffic lights, learning to tolerate someone's annoying behavior, and so much more. But what did I need to do to create a bigger shift in my life? I caught myself wanting more and more, not just more evidence, but also more life experiences, something more exciting, more of that optimism and drive that both seemed to plateau. I had created a new habit, and there was nothing new about it anymore. It was effective, but my quest seemed to be on hold again. Was this it? Years of working on myself resulting in being a little happier, attracting nicer people into my life, and slightly improved communication. But what about my dreams and goals that I longed for? I realized that I was falling back into an old pattern. The dissatisfaction was creeping in again. Putting myself down, being too hard on myself, powerlessness was returning. Not long after, I realized that I had actually opted for the easy route. I had only tackled the small issues in my daily life. It didn't take long before I began paying attention to the bigger picture. From analyzing family traits to actively manifesting my future. I was confronted with the fact that there were so many problems in my life that I simply wasn't addressing. Things or actions that I didn't see, wasn't aware of, or even denied. On one hand, it was painful to be back at the starting line. But on the other hand, I finally had the new challenge I had asked for. It was strange to look in the mirror with a new perspective and realize how much I had missed. That despite all my efforts, I wasn't consciously aware of certain significant character traits and recurring patterns that were so prominent and making my life more difficult than necessary. What had become a light and simple habit now seemed to become much more complex, as if I were leveling up in a video game, taking a step higher and facing greater challenges.